But what would you say was the state of African woman activism at the time, and how important was it for you to be a member of the Alkebu-Lan revivalist movement as a woman?
It was always it was central to my activism. It was always at the forefront of my mind that I am a female, and I have a responsibility to other females. That's how I saw it. I didn't see it as men need to give women this and men need to give women that. No, I felt it was our right as sisters to assert ourselves and put ourselves in the forefront of the fight, make sure that our voice, our ideas are reflected in whatever organization, movement, group that we're part of. And I've always, when I did get involved in the recruitment program, which is quite early on, well, another stage of the movement's life, should I say, I wouldn't say it was early on, another stage of the movement's life, when our recruitment program was a bit more formal, a bit more organized. I always said to the women that came on the program that, the question always come up like, women, why should women, are women given any roles, and women in leadership? I said, well, I'm assistant, I'm running the recruitment program, and that's a form of leadership. The assistant is another sister, and so forth and so forth. And sometimes we see women there, but yet we're still trying to find something to justify God knows what. But in those times, women were very much at the forefront, especially in Rastafari, and there was lots of sister organizations as well. Some of them, questionable, but nonetheless, I would say questionable because the agenda,
right,
and the fact that they were funded to do specific things,
right,
and some of those sister organizations, I would say, were hijacked by another agenda,
right.
So they're set up to deal with, abuse, women abuse in the community, support systems, and things like that. But then a particular type of woman hijacked that,
right,
with another agenda, which is an anti-African man agenda.
Okay.
And a lot of those didn't come to much. But I think women were always at the forefront. And I don't think, yes, there were issues with man-woman issues, but there has been, and there will continue to be, as long as we are enslaved under white supremacy, as long as patriarchy is still the dictating force in white supremacy, which affects and educates many of us, and so men and women, we are both affected by it. So I don't see it as men keeping women down or what have you. No, I see it as African men and women wanting to rise up and find our own way, our ancestors' way of dealing and organizing. And once you study your culture, I think it is just natural. White women have issues with white men, and if you look at their history, you can see why. But African women have not had issues with black men in our own systems.
Right.
Our own system has always had respect and high regard for women and our roles. If you look at the Garvey movement, because the Alkebu-Lan revivalist movement was born on the Garvey movement. The Pan-African Congress movement was born on the Garvey movement. And when you study these movements, the women in there were, elevated, and they were at the forefront. So, I just think as women, it's our role and our responsibility to be involved in the development of our nation, and our role is key, it's fundamental. If we have brothers that have a problem with that, maybe because they themselves are still gripped by white patriarchy, masochistic, cultural traits, that they're still affected. And I think we should see it in that context. We shouldn't see it as this is the sum total of the Pan-African movement, because there's some black man trying to keep some black woman down or what have you. But it is really about African women asserting themselves.
Although I'm sure you'll agree, Sister Kai, some of us as men have taken on some bad habits and attitudes.
Oh, definitely.
And we do sometimes behave inappropriately.
I think
in relationships, in family, in community, in organizations.
Yes, definitely. Because we take these things, we've just moved, all we've done is realize that, oh gosh, I'm an African, I need to organize for my liberation. But it's a process. So the fact that you've made that step, it doesn't mean that you've shed all the traits and of white supremacy. It's a process, because all these things that a lot of African men are doing, they can't only do it because African women have allowed them to. You know, I'm not trying to take away responsibility for African men have to deal with African men, and African women is going to have to deal with African women. How we handle these situations, how we put ourselves in these situations, and so forth. And African men are going to have to manage and handle African men who are violating African women.
Yes, sir.
And women that are violating African men. They, you know, the numbers may be smaller, but it's still there, and it, you know, it's an issue. And, you know, even violation of our children and the neglect of our children. All these things, the breakdown of the African family is part and parcel of the problem. This year, the Alkebu-Lan revivalist movement is going to be focusing on the African family.
Yes, sir.
Key and fundamental.
Yes, sir.
Tenamwai.
Very important, kings and queens. And one thing I can say about being raised in the Alkebu-Lan revivalist movement is that it's always been a family-centered organization. You know, and people come in as families, and or they come in and create families, kings and queens.
And there's been a number of that over the years.
Yes, and they leave as families.
Indeed, yeah. Many do leave as families, you know. But even that's to be applauded in the sense we give time for the family staying together. You know what I mean? You know, at the very least, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? You know, for the sake of the children, you know. But yes, kings and queens, it's very important that we heighten the profile of, and I can say, growing up, brotherly, that was one of your concerns in terms of the emphasis that we place on relationship and family development in liberation. We can,
lack thereof.
Yeah, we can be meeting centered, or you know, maybe even program centered, without centralizing our family in the meeting and the program. Please feel free to share a reflection on that if you so wish.
Well, Tendai, what we have to always remember is that the oppression of our people historically has been about the attack on our humanity and everything that defines African humanity. So how we organize society, how we organize family, etc. All of that has, you know, all the institutions, our traditional institutions and practices have been attacked, and our traditional institutions have been built around the family. The family is the foundation of community, the foundation of society, it's the foundation of nation. The nation is built on family values. And so I think we've had a tendency to be kind of hardline politics, or hardline, political, without factoring in how we restore our natural way of life. This is why we put that emphasis on. We talk about tradition, we talk about our spirituality, we talk about our culture. All of that defines how we organize ourselves as family.
Yes, sir.
You know, in the context of family.
And I was going to say,
it defines our cultural values. Sorry, Tenamwai.
And the African woman is central to that.
Yeah.
And so when you have an organization like, you know, which is, it's more than just an organization, it's a liberty, a way of life, like Rastafari. The woman is central. If it's based around the family, her role is key and central.
But what would you say, because to come back to what you're saying, Mama Khan, and we'll come to the end of the show, but some people might say that making family a woman's focal point in an organization is an attempt to reduce the woman's effectiveness in other areas of the organization and activity. Some might say this is a misogynistic idea.
Tenamwai. That's because maybe you see family as something lesser or lower than any other role in the organization.
Okay.
That is the most important, key, fundamental role in building anything in the organization. If the family structure is broken down, like our family structures have been broken down, that's why we have so many problems. It's not we have a problem with absent father, just an absent father, but the family is broken down. So the absent father, his lack of presence is key and fundamental, because there is no family structure. There's no grandma, there's no auntie, there's no uncle, there's no cousins, you know, which is part of one family unit.
And it's all of that was broken down.
This is it.
When Africa was invaded, when Africans were taken into slavery, when we were conquered and enslaved, and when we were put in systems of slavery, denied the opportunity to organize ourselves as families,
and we have to
communities.
And if we understand the role of the family isn't some entity somewhere in the background. The family lays the educational program down. The family, the mother, which does mainly the cooking and people can say if they want to that is belittling her to the kitchen. Well, there's nothing wrong with the kitchen. The kitchen is key and fundamental in the home. That's where that's where your health program comes from.
Right.
That's where your all aspects of your personal, physical, spiritual development takes place. It is not, the planting of the food, the cooking of the food, the herbs that you use to heal the family. All of that, you grew into becoming specialists in those roles and areas. So it's not something that is denigrated in African culture.